of the Full Court Press. I am your host, Drew Duncan. Do not forget that Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan 83. Additionally, you can find me on YouTube. Simply look for Drew Duncan. And of course, the Full Court Press is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Folks, it is football season. And of course, one of the many questions that happens along with football is the idea of concussions. How do they happen? How can we maybe prevent them? And if they do happen, how can we potentially cure them? One of the gentlemen that is on the phone with me right now has the potential answer for that from the University of Tulane, where he received his doctorate. Dr. Michael Lewis is on the program with us. Dr. Lewis, thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes to speak with me today.
It's great to be with you, Drew.
I just want to get right to it. First of all, I'm kind of an antithesis guy. I always like to explore the opposite reaction of things. And regardless of whatever metrics you choose to use, American football generally does not rank number one in terms of concussions. In fact, when we look at youth sports, oftentimes we find that women's soccer ranks the highest in concussions. And in adult males 18 and over, we actually find that rugby, soccer, and hockey often put you at more risk than football. So the question is, why does American football seem to get the brunt of all the exposure when it comes to concussions?
Well, that's a great question because, as you mentioned, other sports certainly have their issues, but yet the focus, the spotlight has been on particularly the NFL, but certainly on football, because, it's a violent collision sport. But there are other, a lot of other violent collision sports out there as well. So it's just kind of how the news has evolved over the last 10, 15 years with this whole conversation about CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. And so it's just, but I see this as a good thing. Having a spotlight has been a good thing because it's raised awareness. And now we can start to do something about it.
One of the biggest anomalies that I discovered a couple of years ago when I initially did my report and spoke with Dr. Rausch about this was that they discovered that in youth, they find that concussions actually take a little bit more time to heal. But for some reason, as you get older, concussions actually heal a little bit quicker. Have they discovered any rhyme or reason to that? Is it all about how your brain matures? I mean, what are some things that you might give to us that you can answer that question with?
Well, it's about how the brain matures. So, at least in males, it's believed that the brain is continuing to mature up until around age 25 or so, and particularly that frontal lobe, behind your forehead, where that's kind of the area that controls executive functioning and reasoning, and which would explain a lot in teenage boys.
From a physician's standpoint, Dr. Lewis, what would you like to see in terms of preventative measures in football?
Well, there's three areas that I think are really important to focus on, and we're doing better in two of them. One is rules, the idea of trying to take the head out of the game and teaching players how to tackle without using their head, but then having the rules and the enforcement behind it to try to get players to stop doing it, and decreasing the risk on things like kickoffs and stuff like that. So that's one. Two is equipment. We're certainly getting better with better helmets and things like that. And so equipment is a good thing. But there's no helmet that will prevent a concussion because when your head stops moving because you hit the ground or hit another person, your brain inside keeps moving. And so there's no helmet that's ever been designed that ever could be designed to eliminate concussions, but it certainly can help decrease the risk. But the third one that we don't look at, and nobody's looking at, is nutrition. How do we make the brain more resilient to withstand an injury in the first place? And that's really through good quality nutrition and very targeted nutritional supplementation that's been shown to be quite helpful.
Throughout the years, there has been more discussion, especially with football. We see this young generation of football coming up now A lot of them are beginning to admit, hey, I don't even necessarily take in meat. I'm pretty much vegan or a vegetarian diet. Is that something that you think can really help some of these athletes in terms of longevity? Because we look at Tom Brady and the TB12 method, something is working. The guy's 42 years old and still playing football and doing it pretty much healthy for the most part.
Well, for the most part, he has a plant-based diet, but as far as I know, it's not completely. I mean, I think he incorporates a lot of seafood. So that's really the key, is plant-based diets with lean proteins and principally, trying to get a good amount of seafood in you on a regular basis. Otherwise known as basically the Mediterranean diet, where you eliminate vegetable oils and you only use, olive oil and maybe coconut oil. But all the vegetable oils and canola oils and corn oil and safflower and all this and all that, that's a lot of the culprit that is making our brains more susceptible to head injuries.
From a physician standpoint, are you more concerned with the initial effect, like somebody maybe gets their first concussion, or are you more concerned with the cumulative effect? Because I think about Antonio Brown right now, what's going on with him and him wanting to use the old helmet, and they're saying, no, look, this new helmet is safer, and he still wants to use the old one. So when you look at these kinds of situations as a whole overall, what are you most concerned with, Dr. Lewis?
Well, every concussion and every person is different. So, I mean, I've certainly seen a number of patients that have one concussion and they are altered for life. And I have other patients that have had 6, 7, 8 concussions, and they are completely better within 24 hours. So, it's one of those things we just don't understand why some people, I think there's a strong genetic component to that, but I also think it's an environmental component. What you are, what you eat. So somebody that's eating junk food and processed foods is going to have a junk brain. But somebody that's eating like Tom Brady, who's eating an incredibly clean and healthy diet, he's got probably a pretty healthy brain, certainly a healthy body.
One of the things that used to be taboo was the discussion of CBD oils and treatments through hemp-based, plant-based, all those kinds of things. You are actually one of those who are an advocate for that. Why?
Well, cannabis has been around for thousands of years, and it used to be one of the main pharmaceutical approaches for things about 100 years ago in this country. When derived from hemp, CBD oil, it doesn't have the THC. It's not going to get you high. And it can have trace amounts, but it's not going to have the amounts enough to get you high. It's the medicinal part of the cannabis plant. In fact, hemp is legal at the federal level, 100% legal. And the World Anti-Doping Association and the U.S. Anti-Doping Association have both taken CBD off their banned substance list, and they no longer test for it. So here we have this great medicinal plant that gets confused with marijuana, and when it's hemp, it's not marijuana, and vice versa. So we really, there's a lot of rules and regulations that need to be worked out, but I think that is going to be a huge impact on the future to help our athletes recover.
Why are you so big on omega-3s?
Well, the brain's made of fat, and about 30% of that weight of the brain is what we call omega-3 type of fats. And omega-3s are antioxidants, and they help resolve inflammation. When you have an injury, you need inflammation, but then you've got to resolve it. And so omega-6 type of fats, which is also very important for the brain, they help promote the inflammation, and the omega-3s are supposed to balance it to help resolve the inflammation. The problem is that we take in way too many omega-6s, so it's like throwing fuel on the fire. Omega-6s are coming from the junk food and the processed food and the vegetable oils like I talked about before. So we've become way out of balance. Instead of inflammation, resolve the inflammation, we're 25, 30 to 1. Typically, the person walking down the street, if you were to check their blood levels, 25 to 1 out of balance. So it's no longer a fair fight throwing fuel on the fire of inflammation.
Somebody who, because one of the things that I've always dealt with or even experienced on my own, because I've interviewed a lot of bodybuilders and athletes from all different kinds of walks of life, from MMA to football, and people always tend to look and go, you're able to afford this diet. This is, you're paid to train year round. This is what you're supposed to do. I, on the other hand, don't necessarily have the financial capability for this. Are there ways for people who don't have necessarily the big time funds to go out there and say, okay, I can get some of this CBD oil. I can go out there and get some of these omega-3s. I mean, what are some foods that they can ingest, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, the first thing is to try to eat a cleaner diet. Get rid of the junk food. Get rid of the bad oils that you may cook with. Deep fried foods, for example. Just, let it go. And so, eating really, really clean and really healthy is not an inexpensive endeavor. So one of the things I've looked at in the past is, what's the cost of a fish oil supplement, for example, compared to good quality salmon at $18.99 a pound or whatever it might be at big grocery stores. So it's a heck of a lot cheaper to take a couple of fish oil capsules every day than it is to eat good quality salmon. So you can eat decently. It's more about eliminating the bad stuff, but you can eat decently and then supplement with some of the things that you need. CBD is a little bit different. CBD is kind of it's a renewed industry, certainly not a new industry, but it's kind of got this whole comeback. And I think prices will come down with CBD over time. We're just so new into this legalization that the prices are still pretty up there.
Dr. Lewis, as I do with all of my guests, I give them an opportunity to say whatever it is that's on their mind at the end of this. There's no right or wrong answer here. The floor is 100% yours.
Well, I would say, for your listeners out there, and particularly for, I like to address the moms. You got teenage kids playing ice hockey or football or soccer. And, you should really take this whole head injury thing seriously. I think that sports are incredibly important. I'm a huge advocate for it, but we can play the game safer, and the best way is you are what you eat. So let's focus on feeding our kids and feeding our athletes good foods and add those supplements to fill in the gaps that we need. And if you want more information, go on to Amazon and get my book, When Brains Collide. And it goes into a lot more detail about why we could be using omega-3s and CBD for prevention and to help people recover from head injury if one does occur.
Dr. Lewis, I want to tell you it was a true treat to have you on the program today. Thank you so much for giving us your time, and best of luck to you, sir, in your endeavor in trying to make all of our athletes safer.
My pleasure, Drew. Hopefully we helped a few people out there today.
I agree. All right, everybody. He is Dr. Michael Lewis, graduate of Tulane down in Louisiana. Guys, I am Drew Duncan, simply host of the Full Court Press. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan 83. And as always, don't you dare touch that dial.